Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host Bill Stierle, and if you're watching the video, you can see Bill's back in his natural habitat. Yay! Yeah. back in his home base. You've been on the road for a long time, like 6 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. 6 weeks.
Wow! Yeah. It involved quarantining when you got to where you were going. I mean, my goodness, you're committed. Well, anyway, welcome back, Bill. Glad to have you. And oh my goodness, can you believe what's happened in the last 6 weeks? It's certainly the entire month of September. It seems like another shoe keeps dropping. Another shoe keeps dropping. Something else gets revealed. And Trump has been on the defensive pretty consistently, even when he has a moment of, naming a Supreme Court nominee. He doesn't get the headlines for that for a week. He got it for maybe half a day or 2 days at most.
Right. And then shift into something else.
I mean, things keep dropping. The most recent one is the New York Times story about the revealing the reality of Trump's tax history, and that's really the big one that's dropped just before recording this. And boy, it seems that just more of the onion keeps peeling back, or that curtain keeps, we keep peeling back that curtain and seeing what's really happening there.
Yeah, I think it is. I think one of the biggest difficulties that we're facing, Tom, is that as a nation, there's a certain reckoning that's going to take place. And the word reckoning is interesting because there's this reconciliation and then there's this restoration that needs to happen. It's like we have to reconcile our books at the end of each, month or quarter, depending on how we as business people use our accounting system to reconcile things. And if a person, chooses to keep borrowing money to pay somebody else, they just take money from one person and put it over here and pay that person. And the person's, creates the story. Yeah, that person's good for it. Well, what happens if they're not? What happens if there is so much in debt that people look at them and say, hey, time to call. You've got to deliver the money. No one else is going to lend to you. Well, there's a thing called liquidation of assets. There's the reconciliation is what are these hotels worth? What's all your real estate properties worth? And the reconciliation, is of all accounts. But there's like two things that are going on at the same time. How the American voter who voted for this person, who had an experience of him being a wealthy, successful business person, I made a lot of money and spoke with a lot of confidence. How are they going to reconcile their belief about him? How are they going to reconcile their identity about him? How are they going to do that? And it's the great reckoning is really basically what we're facing. Everything ends. There's we can look at all these different nations that used to rule the world, whether it's Portugal, and it's so funny, I led with that one, right? Portugal, when did they lead the world? They had their time. Every nation had a certain time because they figured out how to run commerce and the economy of the world through their country. So there is the great reconciliation that needs to take place. It's like, okay, how can we move it to a place of reconciliation? So when you think about the taxes piece, there are people that are going like, well, he's a smart guy. He only had to pay this amount of money.
Sure. You know what? And I had that experience just hours ago, actually, with a Facebook friend who posted, hey, everybody who's, beating up the president over only paying $750 tax bill, that's actually what, if all of us as citizens are not, if we don't know how to do it ourselves, getting the proper support from a tax professional and paying the least amount of tax possible under the law, then we're being foolish and we're hurting ourselves and all this stuff. And I actually commented on that, said, that's a very fair point. I actually agreed with that. And I myself, use the tax code and the fact that I'm a business owner to my advantage to reduce my tax to the least amount. But the difference, and to me, what really, and what I commented back, and this New York Times story and the revelation, or the proof of Trump's taxes, what it really reveals is just how he is not at all a very very intelligent or successful business person that he would like us all to believe he is. Because look, it's one thing for a few years, a year or 2, 3, whatever, as you're starting a business, to take advantage of the tax code, maximize your deductions, pay little to no tax. I've done it myself. I'm speaking from experience here. But sure, it is not a sustainable long-term business plan to continue to spend far more money than you make as a company for decades. And that's literally what he's done here. And this is not an exaggeration. For decades, he has, spent more than he's earned and borrowed more than he's earned. And while just on its face right there, that's very concerning, because what it really reveals is that what Trump is very talented at is marketing and branding himself so that everybody believes he is a good and successful business person. Right. And in fact, he's not. I mean, he's siphoning off as much money as he can. He's borrowing as much money as possible to create this illusion. And it's just not long-term sustainable. So the two things, that's one part of a point, Bill, that I just want to make. And then one more, and then I'll hand it back to you, is that if that's not alarming enough, right, in terms of a reckoning that, hey, this guy, I mean, he's not running profitable businesses. His businesses are bleeding cash. He does not, he either doesn't have the ability or he doesn't care to actually build a business into a profitable enterprise. That's one. The second thing, Bill, that's more concerning to me is that, the federal government, especially in our intelligence agencies, don't give security clearances to people that are being appointed to cabinet positions or even support positions to cabinet members if they have a significant amount of personal debt. I mean, I'm talking, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, because
yes,
it's a very real danger to the government that somebody can use that fact against them and curry favor with them. right? That
Right.
say, oh, I'll take care of your debts if you do this for me, or I'm going to reveal, your secrets if you don't do what I want you to do. That's, illegal and nefarious. And here we have a president that the New York Times, story has revealed that he's personally attached to all these businesses that have hundreds of millions of dollars of loans coming due within the next couple of years. And that is deeply troubling and concerning, that the leader of the free world has this burden. And it is not a charitable thing, folks. It is not an asset. It is not an advantage. His knowledge of how to get into debt is not going to help us as a nation. So, all right, that's my other point.
Well, if I'm a person that invested my vote, my identity in a Trump flag, and I put my vote, I'm believing the messaging that's coming from his mouth, from his administration, from Fox News. It takes a bit for them to find the thing that they get to hang their vote on. I need to hang my vote on something because I've got a reconciliation. I got to reconcile my identity that I've aligned with this other person's identity. And that's tough to pry away from. Wait a minute, my identity, even post-World War II, people struggled with how could we believe or follow such a person as the Japanese emperor? How could we follow, Hitler? Even people in certain religious cults or even just cults, how can we follow this person? And there's something in the person and the nation that wants to believe these things about ourselves, that we are number one, even though when we measure ourselves against other countries, we're not. We're not number one in manufacturing anymore. Well, I don't know what even number we are. We aren't number one in education. We're not number one in, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So the reconciliation part of it is tough because we have to stare at what we don't have. And our identity of America First is a interesting marketing and branding slogan. Yet it's not in balance with the modern world. It's not in balance with other times when the United States wanted to go down this path of isolation. I mean, we've wanted to do this as a nation many times in our history of 200 years. And every time, except this one, we said, no, we're not going down the path of isolation. We are going to keep moving towards expansion. We're going to work with the world. We're not going to work against the world. We're not going to work against ourselves, but we're going to work towards harmony. We're not going to work towards separation. Let's see, we have somebody that has worked towards separation, and this is not my quote, but he's been quoted as he's the first president that hasn't tried to unite the nation. He hasn't done that. His messaging has not been hey, let's work together with those Democrats. Let's work together with China. Let's work together with, XYZ. No, he's not a work together guy. So the great reckoning for the Trump presidency is not only a reconciliation of his financial accountings, but a reconciliation for our national identity. Identity is an important need for us. And this is where we have to eat crow a little bit. So this is a toughie. So
it is really tough, Bill. And, people that invested their vote in President Trump in 2016 had certain beliefs at the time. And it seems like a lot of those beliefs or, points of identity are, being chipped away at on a pretty regular basis. We had, in the span of a few weeks, we've had the Atlantic story about, Trump and how he thinks of people that serve in the military leaders, POWs, war heroes, the rest of us might call them. And he didn't really think of, John McCain as a hero. He was quoted as, or I guess he quoted is the wrong word. Others have said that he referred to POWs as losers and suckers, people who serve in the military as suckers, this sort of thing. And that chipped away at certainly a part of the electorate that, have much, much more respect, much higher regard for people that serve our nation in the military. It's very hard for those people to back somebody who's going to call them losers and suckers. And, we keep getting more things chipped away. You had the Woodward, interview where we heard in Trump's own voice saying, how dangerous the virus was. And he's telling the rest of the country, pardon me. We had with the Woodward tapes that we hear the president's own voice where, he says that, the virus is lethal and airborne. It's deadly, much more so than the flu. And then he's telling the rest of the country it's not even as bad as the flu. He's downplaying it. And so that peeled off more people, that, we're losing faith in the president. And now you have really the very foundation of his entire identity of running for president. When he came down the escalator and made that speech in, 2015, where he said, I'm really rich. Right. And that was very important to him. And you've said on this show many times, Bill, that in America, we tend to equate intelligence with wealth. Or
yes, and respect.
In many ways, and respect, right?
Right.
And here, evidence has been revealed that he's, while he lives a very wealthy lifestyle, all financial evidence suggests his net worth may be negative. He is spending more than he makes. So, you can try.
It's going to be interesting.
That, but gosh,
it's going to be interesting how the unraveling of this experience of, and that's what a reckoning is. It's we've got to reconcile our beliefs. We've got to reconcile our identity. These are important needs for us. America's track record regarding accountability is not particularly strong. We're not big on owning mistakes as a nation. We just don't do it very well. The Iraq War, a mistake. Well, we attacked a country that didn't have anything to do with 9/11, but we made it up the experience. And the intel wasn't there. It wasn't, in looking back, we discovered that the intel wasn't there, even though the leaders told us that, there's something over there we got to go find with nuclear weapons.
Mobile bioweapon labs. There's the nuclear weapons being
these
made
things,
with these aluminum tubes, and all this stuff.
I mean, and even Saddam Hussein one time was interviewed, and if you look back at the records, he goes, "What do you guys want? Do you want more money? What do you really want from us?" And the answer was, a place to have a war. We want from you a place to have it, and you're the guy, So it's really, really very, very challenging. Very, very challenging. So among other motives that and we're not good with scary honesty. We're not. It's sort of like, Tom, when your kid makes a mistake, how hard are you on your kid?
Sometimes harder than I should be. And I try not to be hard. I try to actually emphasize, all right, I'll give you an example. I just had this happen. I've got a 6-year-old in first grade doing distance learning from home, which most people are right now. And she's on virtual class, and I've hired somebody to come in and assist and monitor and make sure that she's actually learning something and dealing with practice and homework and the whole thing, because I don't have time to do it as a, person running a business.
Right.
So, but my 6-year-old, who had never used an actual computer before this year, starting in August, we have to teach her to use a computer. She figures out how to get on YouTube in another tab in the browser, where she's in one browser window, obviously in class. She's on Zoom. She discovers YouTube and figures out how to watch Barbie videos. Now, fortunately, it was children-related stuff. Right. But she's got class going on in one tab, simultaneously not listening to that, not watching it, and is playing a Barbie video in another tab. Pretty clever. I'm like, gosh, you figured that out? That's amazing. I mean, she's not even fully reading. She's reading, but a little bit, and figuring out how to navigate a computer. So on the one hand, this is not good. This is not proper behavior. This is bad, and you want to emphasize that, make sure that they understand it. On the other hand, you also don't want to come down on her so hard that, she doesn't really learn a lesson here. So, it's, the thing was, I kept to the point of saying, getting her to admit that she was doing something she shouldn't have been doing, or that she lied about it initially. And now's your opportunity to tell the truth, to come clean. And if you are honest with me about what you did, you're not going to get in trouble. But we're going to talk about it, and if we do it in the future, you're going to maybe have a consequence, but not now. And she did tell the truth. So anyway, I don't know. It's a long way of getting at, I try not to come down super hard and be so
so that's your young kid.
Yeah.
So now let's go ahead, and you've had a teenage kid at one time.
Oh, sure.
How hard are you on the teenage kid, 16, 17?
Well, before
15.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how I am with the next teenager who's not a teenager yet, because I've learned a lot and grown in my language and communication. But with the first one, I was probably pretty darn hard.
Right. So where I'm going with this is that, how hard are we going to be on the Trump voter? How hard are we going to be on them that they, quote unquote, made a mistake, or that the people that are, or how hard are we going to be as a nation on the Republicans? How hard are we going to be? And is it going to be, because there's a lot of choices that were made that met the needs of the individual donors, but did not meet the needs of the nation. So,
it's a very interesting question, Bill. I mean, I think if we're going to approach this with a goal of reconciliation and restoration, healing,
That's right.
we need to be empathetic to the Republican voter and, remember, we're all Americans. We're all living here
Yes.
together, and try to be compassionate to them. But
Right.
the tough thing, what makes it really hard, Bill, is not the Republican voters so much, but it's the Republican members of Congress and our president that make it really hard.
Right.
Take the, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death and, the fact that Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate are going to absolutely shove this nominee down the throat of the American people because they can. They have the power to do it, but they are being completely inconsistent and hypocritical with what they all said in 2016. Heck, some of them even said it in 2018 or even more recently. If you're Lindsey Graham, hold the tape, he said, hold the tape.
Against me.
We should not do it. And that makes it very hard because in our minds, we lump in the Trump supporter of the voters, the people, with the Trump supporters of our leadership.
This is really difficult because this is when there's one thing to change your mind, there's another thing to lie, and there's another thing to be a hypocrite. All those languages create violence that we all have to restore because we still got to live with each other as a nation. We still got to get in place of having compassionate empathy to say, your values are so important that you would like the court and the legal system to reflect your values. And your values as a conservative person is something that you would like to see in the court. You do not want a liberal mindset as a judge. You want a conservative mindset as a judge. And having empathy and compassion for that is saying, this person wants to have their belief structure to be in alignment with stability, consistency, fiscal responsibility, rule of the law for certain people, not necessarily rule of law all the way across the board because, if things aren't equitable, well, at least they're equitable in my court. But not if you have somebody that is not in an environment that you're not considering all the things around their environment. Well, they should have known better. It's like they didn't have any ability to get there from here. And this person does other things that need to be changed, and they're in front of your court because of that. See, there's not a lot of compassion or empathy from time to time when you get down to the rule of law. It's sort of like you wrote it, you pay the price. You did the thing, you pay the price, which is what we're actually seeing in the current Department of Justice, where one group of people gets off easy, another group of people doesn't get off easy. If you know this group of people or have this amount of money, that's one part of law. And the other part of law is if you have a little bit of money and you're caught in this part of the system. So we have a reckoning to do and a reconciliation, not just of Trump's books, but a reconciliation of the nation. How are we going to move back to a collaborative, cooperative position? How are we going to adjust our mindset as well as the mindset of others to be more inclusive? Because I don't want a trade war to be between California and Alabama. or a reconciliation between New Yorkers and Floridians. I mean, that type of mindset is not the United States of America, where our states compete with each other aggressively. Whereas other countries, that's not fully true. They do compete with each other aggressively. And that's the thing too, actually, is a big part of our, again, the reckoning of the Trump presidency, the reconciliation of his books, the reconciliation of our identity as Americans, and then eventually working our way back to the restoration of trust and the commitment to truth in a new way. We've got to recommit to truth. I mean, you and I have been talking a year and a half about how truth is being purchased. Well, here we are. We've got to reconcile truth. Oh, yeah. After doing this for a year and a half, what a journey, right? Jeez.
It's incredible. And, I'll tell you, while certainly a lot of people have believed that this president has not been truthful from the beginning, that's why this, sort of circling back to the New York Times story about his tax records is so huge, is because it gets to the very foundation of his justification for why we should elect him to be president, because he's a wealthy, successful businessman. And, there's a definition, Bill, there's another term that we haven't mentioned here today, but that when I read the definition, it so applies to this present situation that we're learning about Trump with all this tax revelation. And the word is charlatan. And the definition, just to be clear about that, is one making usually showy pretenses to knowledge or ability. And then the synonyms are fraud and faker. I mean, the reality is that he has been making showy, showy pretenses to his knowledge and ability, even as a business person. Forget trying to lead a nation, but the very, again, foundation of what a lot of people were attracted to vote for him because of it didn't exist. And this is and that narrative is not going away. He will still say, I pay a lot of taxes. I'm a smart guy because I follow the tax codes. I was a person that, just used the rules that were in front of me. And, it's a little bit of, how a big part of the trick, but sometimes it's feeling like that, how many excuses can we, keep creating? And again, that's what's kind of happening with the various different voter blocks. They're all peeling off. The veterans, a certain group of veterans peel off, and he loses another 10 or 100,000 voters. Another group of housewives peel off. He loses another 10,000 or another 100,000 voters. And because of it, there's no way to go. It's sort of like you come outside and your kid, dinged the front of the car, and there's a dent in the front car. The car is like, who did this? Oh, someone ran into me. Someone ran into you? Did you get their name? Oh, no, it was a hit and run. So someone ran into it. It was hit and run. Well, where did it take place? Oh, well, it was near this intersection. Near this intersection? It's like you're getting a kind of a truth, but you're not really getting a truth.
It's like, okay, did you run into something? Oh, no, I'm a great driver. Well, the car was parked. I thought you said it was near an intersection. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, when am I going to get a truth out of this 16 or 17-year-old about the dent in my car?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like America's cars need to be fixed. We've been dinged up for 4 years here. We got dents in our integrity. We've got dents in our respect. We've got dents in our trust. And even though somebody that might listen to this go like, well, you're against, it's not about Trump at this point. It's about messaging and belief structure and identity. Is, do we want to be that country that does this stuff? Or do we want to be the other country that we used to be, the shining light on a hill? I mean, do we want to be that? It's like, okay, so you stop the Mexicans from coming in. Great. Well, what's the impact on the agriculture business because you did that? There's no one there to pick fruit. There's nobody there that are there to lift their family and their existence up by getting out of a country because they just want to be safe. They want to sleep in peace. Really hard. Well, Tom, there's plenty more to go here, but we're in the process of restoration, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens because we've got a debate coming up too. So
yeah, we can't get to that restoration soon enough, I think. But you're right. Yeah. I think our next episode was going to be a discussion about that first presidential debate, which is about to take place. So that I imagine we'll have almost too much to talk about. But I enjoy going through the language and communication and see who really did well communicating the message and who didn't, and maybe also some Monday morning quarterbacking of, oh, if only he had done this or that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly, Tom. All right, well, more to come.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Tom. All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.